Many AEW contracts reportedly do not have non-compete clauses except CM Punk possibly, leading an update to his professional wrestling and All Elite Wrestling future. Taya Valkyrie is All Elite. She made her debut last night on AEW Dynamite. The four pillars combine in MJF's Rebar Mitzvah, possibly showing up plans for the AEW World Championship as we're on the road now to Double or Nothing in May. The Elite nearly reunite to close out AEW Dynamite last night in the Trios World Championship match, but was there a botch actually in the finish of the match in question? We'll talk about that. Soraya has been fined by AEW for cursing live on television last night as the Outcasts put the AEW Women's Division on notice. QTV debuts on Dynamite last night. Chuck Taylor undergoes emergency surgery. A TNT Championship match has been made official for AEW Rampage. Sarah Stock joins AEW, and some stars were unhappy with the latest AEW advertising for the shows in Canada. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about non-competes. Yes, contracts. What a fun thing to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. Well, it's quite interesting because, of course, there's a thing going on in the United States at the moment when it comes to the FTC pushing for non-competes not even to be a thing, of course, particularly for independent contractors. And some people said, well, that could revolutionize pro wrestling. That could change pro wrestling. It could change WWE, which has the standard 90-day non-compete clause or 30-day non-compete clause if you're an NXT talent. But according to a report by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, non-competes don't actually exist for AEW contracts. Well, the majority of them anyway. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, the non-compete rulings the FTC are pushing for may not affect All Elite Wrestling at all. Based on the contracts that Fightful has seen within AEW and numerous talent that they've spoken to, there aren't any non-compete clauses attached to many of them. Now, non-competes are standard in WWE deals, with main rosters lasting 90 days and NXT's lasting a general 30 days. However, All Elite Wrestling doesn't seem to have any. When asking AEW sources about the nature of this, Fightful were told a few things. For one, All Elite Wrestling doesn't generally release talent anyway unless there's a special request or disciplinary action, so they haven't necessarily had to implement those as of right now. A non-compete would generally just extend the life of a deal ending. Non-competes can't really do that unless it's agreed upon by the talent. Upon some early departures, Fightful have been told things are largely a case-by-case basis. For example, everyone that Fightful have spoke to within AEW believed that if CM Punk were let out of his AEW deal early, it would be on the condition he not compete in WWE for a period of time, the same way as it did when it came to William Regal too. And that's what we have seen. This seems like a big story. It's certainly something people are talking about, I've seen in the last 24 hours or so, but basically what they're saying is there is no need for non-competes because AEW, as a rule of thumb, doesn't release talent. They let their contracts expire. Once they've expired, they can go anywhere they want immediately, but that's the case with WWE too. So realistically, it's a case of there aren't any non-competes because we don't release people. And when we do, on a case-by-case basis, i.e. William Regal or, whoever it may be, Big Swole or I think Evilise was another one, then, when they actually do release people, or Jimmy Havoc was another one, based on disciplinary reasons or wanting to get out of their contracts, then they can put non-competes on that if they want to, but they haven't really had to do that. But that would go back to the CM Punk discussion, whereby if he were to have a buyout of his contract, which was at one point being negotiated, we haven't heard anything about it for months now, then maybe they would want a non-compete with WWE as part of that situation. But as of right now, we haven't heard anything about AEW and CM Punk negotiating for a long time. So it's certainly interesting to point out for the future. Now, let's talk about AEW Dynamite's last night on TBS because Taya Valkyrie is All Elite. It seemed clear that AEW was building to some kind of surprise debut with TBS champion Jade Cargill issuing an open challenge for a Canadian wrestler to challenge her at AEW's debut in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada on Wednesday. The question was just who was going to be used in that spot. It seemed like the two most popular fan picks were Taya Valkyrie, the former Frankie Monet in NXT, and veteran independent standout Nicole Matthews, with Matthews having made a surprise return to the American independent scene on Saturday night with an appearance for Defy thanks to a brand new work visa. She made a certain kind of sense as to being the favourite. But so did Valkyrie, since it's been repeatedly stressed in recent weeks that she is a free agent, and both picks ended up being right. Well, sort of, when it came to Dynamite last night. Matthews was the opponent, only to be quickly squashed by Jade Cargill. The champion then cut a promo menacing interviewer Renee Paquette in the process, asking if Matthews was all that Canada had for her. Cue Taya Valkyrie's entrance, which was then followed by her laying out Layla Gray. Tony Khan later tweeted that Valkyrie has indeed signed an AEW contract. It was later announced during the broadcast that she will make her in-ring debut this coming Friday on the episode of Rampage on TNT. Now, to give a bit of an update on this, Fightful Select Sean Ross Sapp once again has given some more details on Taya Valkyrie making her debut in AEW. Fightful had spoken to Taya Valkyrie in early February, and she told Fightful that she'd hoped to nail down a long-term contract in 2023. Fightful can confirm that she's either signed or intends to sign with AEW, and had informed other companies that she was working with about her plans. Fightful have been told that several companies were made aware of her signing as far back as February. She's still scheduled and set for April Major League Wrestling tapings and intends to make those dates, but after that she'll become more exclusive with AEW, but she is going to finish up her places and her dates in all of those other companies. But Taya Valkyrie indeed is All Elite. Now, Dynamite kicked off last night with the incredible Bar Mitzvah segment for AEW World Champion MJF, but his celebrations were interrupted by 3 stars who demanded a shot at his title. The Salt of the Earth opened the show where he mocked the Canadian audience, even going as far to say that Shawn Michaels was better than Bret Hart. But while he also took part in the traditional Jewish horror dance, the festivities were cut short as Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, and later Darby Allin made their way to the ring, took shots at MJF and explained why they deserved an opportunity at the AEW World Championship. Jungle Boy reminded MJF that the last time the two faced, MJF cheated to win and that the champion doesn't work as hard as the rest of the locker room. Darby Allin spoke passionately about how AEW has offered him something other promotions haven't, and that unlike MJF and other AEW stars, he doesn't complain on social media. Guevara, meanwhile, accused MJF of kissing ass to get to the top, that he didn't put in the hard yards in the indies as he did. MJF was then pushed into his bar mitzvah cake, which made him quite angry. MJF has previously claimed on an episode of Dynamite in 2021 that he, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin are the 4 pillars of AEW, and gloated he had beaten 2 of them when he was feuding with Darby Allin. Of course, MJF is the only star among the 4 to have won a world title in the company. Allin has had 2 chances to win the title, losing both times against Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho, while Jungle Boy lost to Kenny Omega back in 2021. MJF has defended his title twice since winning it from Jon Moxley, defeating Ricky Starks on Dynamite and Bryan Danielson at Revolution earlier on this month. Now, if this is going to be leading possibly to a fatal 4-way match at Double or Nothing, I'm all in. What a story that could be, talking about the 4 pillars of AEW clashing for the richest prize in the company. Now, Dynamite started off hot and it ended off hot last night when it came to a possible cliffhanger of the Elite maybe getting back together. On last night's AEW Dynamite, a vicious main event for the AEW Trios Championships featuring the Elite versus the Jericho Appreciation Society versus the current champions, the House of Black. With Omega and Jericho together taking down Brody King, the fans rejoiced in seeing Winnipeg's native sons work together. However, immediately thereafter, Jericho hit Omega with a code breaker and got a near fall, but the match continued. With more big offense all around, there were opportunities for every team to grab the win, but none could quite finish it off. In the final third of the match, Jericho used his baseball bat Floyd behind the back of referee Aubrey Edwards and went for the pin on Brody King. However, he still managed to kick out. In the end, the House of Black retained the AEW Trios Championships after the pinfall victory on Daniel Garcia. However, in the spillover from a fight they had apparently raged in the back throughout the show, the Blackpool Combat Club was still brawling with the Dark Order and Hangman Adam Page. With the show ending on a big face-off with the Blackpool Combat Club on one side, Hangman Adam Page in the middle, and the Elite behind them, the show went off the air, continuing to tease this idea that possibly the Elite could reunite with Hangman Adam Page reuniting with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega for the first time since, gosh, what was that, 2020? I think was the last time they were together, something of that nature. So Again, certainly a very interesting tease when it comes to closing Dynamite, but there was a bit of controversy when it comes to the Trios Championship match because, as I mentioned, in the closing seconds of the match, it is Daniel Garcia who takes the finishing move from Dante's Inferno from Brody King. However, there was one small problem. It didn't initially appear that Daniel Garcia was actually the legal man in the match, as a number of fans pointed out on social media. However, when you watch it back closely, he was, but there were other mistakes along the way that made it look like he wasn't. Daniel Garcia was legal. Chris Jericho tagged himself in on Sammy Guevara, who wasn't legal, so the tag shouldn't have counted. Chris Jericho went for a pin and the referee counted it, which shouldn't have happened because Garcia should still be legal at this point, not Jericho, but this means the referee thinks Jericho is legal at this point. Jericho leaves the ring, Garcia re-enters, no tag, Garcia is pinned. So in the end, the right person was pinned, but in amongst the chaos, Jericho had tagged himself in on the wrong partner, and the referee counted a Jericho pin attempt that shouldn't have been counted, then counted Garcia being pinned straight after, despite there being no tag between him and Jericho. So very, very, very convoluted. They got there in the end, but it's kind of like that question in an exam where you show all of your working's wrong, but you somehow get to the right answer. It was a bit strange. Now, as to what happened after the show, of course, the show ended with the Elites, that being Nick and Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega on one side of the ring, the Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta on the other side, Hangman Adam Page, of course, being in the middle. However, as the Blackpool Combat Club ended up backing down and leaving the ring, it left Hangman to deal with the Elite behind him. With no love lost between those four, fans were naturally curious what happened after the show went off the air, but essentially the answer is a short stare down, but clearly formed allegiances. While Kenny Omega was the first to turn his back on Page and leave the ring, the Young Bucks stayed at the ready, alerting Hangman when Wheeler Yuta attempted to pop back up for another go. While the Bucks did eventually join Omega on the outside of the ring, there was a long enough linger to read that they do actually miss Hangman Adam Page after all. So seemingly the storyline involving the Elite is going to have something involving Hangman Page coming back. You could ask, why were Stu Grayson and Evil Uno not involved? Well, as this brawl that had apparently been erupting backstage between the Blackpool Combat Club and the Dark Order / Hangman Page throughout the entire episode, once it spilled out to ringside, it left us some very interesting news. Two people that weren't there, of course, were Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. According to the commentary team, Evil Uno had to be taken to the hospital after the earlier trios match between the Blackpool Combat Club and Hangman, Uno and Grayson. It was also advised that Stu Grayson had accompanied Uno on the trip to the hospital, so that's why they weren't there, according to commentary. But certainly some very interesting developments last night on Dynamite. Now, Soraya, she was fined last night on Dynamite because she used a curse word that you're not allowed to use on TBS. The Outcasts, Ruby Soho, Toni Storm, and Soraya have a new faction name and now a new message for the AEW Women's Division. They have a new faction name and they're here to stay. Ruby Soho and Toni Storm and Soraya have joined forces in AEW and had a strong message for any of their future opponents. Taking to the ring to take turns on the mic, reminding fans why they're the baddest woman in the business, all three gave compelling talks, including zingers throughout. However, while they declared that without them, there wouldn't even be an AEW Women's Division, some AEW stars had something to say about that. Making a run out to the ring, the AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter and Dr. Britt Baker DMD, however, they were quickly overpowered by the Outcast numbers advantage. Then running out, AEW homegrown stars Riho, Willow Nightingale and Sky Blue to send the heels running to the back using grease spray paint unused on this night. However, Soraya, as I mentioned, was fined last night on AEW Dynamite. During her turn on the mic, Soraya called the fans a word that begins with T, which is a very British insult, and over here isn't as offensive as it is over in the United States. I would say it's still a swear word, still a curse word, but in the United States it's a very, very strong word. Over here it's not as much. And if a tweet from Soraya herself is to be believed, it's an insult that went far too live for live TV. She said, quote, I indeed got fined for saying the T word on live TV at AEW #Outcast. Now, AEW has made a conscious effort a number of months ago to reduce talent swearing during shows by putting strict fines in place, but it does often seem like a lot of them are willing just to accept the fines instead of simply not swearing. But so I don't think Soraya particularly cares that much. Again, it's really interesting, that one, because again, over in the United States, it's a really bad word. Over here, it's not as bad. Still a curse word, but she got fined because of it. Now, last night on Dynamite also saw the debut of QTV. Of course, the world was waiting for this debut. I talk in jest, of course. Last week, Wardlow's rental car was broken into the night before his TNT Championship defense on AEW Dynamite, which he tweeted about at the time. Specifically, he said that everything in the car was stolen, including his wrestling gear and his championship bout. The next night on Dynamite, there was a bout to award after the match to crown the new champion Powerhouse Hobbs, who dethroned Wardlow with help from QT Marshall. But the bout had a late change to be in a Falls Count Anywhere match with both in street clothes, possibly as a cover for Wardlow not having his gear. Since then, AEW has been promoting the debut of Marshall's QTV, and it happened on Wednesday's Dynamite, where the segment either revealed the smash and grab to be a work or a genuine crime that has been turned into a storyline. The debut of QTV was a clear parody of TMZ's daily syndicated TV show, with Marshall in the role of Harvey Levin. In the segment, they showed found footage of the alleged robbery, which revealed that Aaron Solo of QT's The Factory stable had stolen the bout. Quote, "Great journalism, guys, great," Marshall said in response to the video, but realistically, he shouldn't be so surprised. I mean, last year, MJF stole his momentum. It was also revealed that in storyline, Wardlow had left his passport in the car, complicating his travel. The segment ended with Hobbs looking into the camera saying, "Wardlow, welcome to Will's world, bitch." Presumably, this feud will continue for the time being, although Wardlow did not appear on Wednesday's edition of Dynamite. Again, maybe because he's having issue in traveling due to the robbery, which may or may not still be a work. Now, Chuck Taylor wasn't at Dynamite last night, and we now know why. During the Orange Cassidy vs. Jeff Jarrett match for the AEW International Championship, Trent Beretta of the Best Friends ran out to help even the odds for Cassidy, as Jarrett had Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal in his corner. However, nowhere to be seen was Beretta's tag team partner, Chuck Taylor. Taylor took to social media shortly after to reveal that he had to undergo emergency dental surgery, and that's why he wasn't on the show. He tweeted, quote, "Couldn't help Orange because I had an emergency dental surgery on my dumb skull. I hope Greg got me a ticket for Shazam Fury of the Gods." Now, for those wondering, Greg is Trent Beretta, and the match was a promotional for Shazam Fury of the Gods, which was also used as part of the reason why the name of the title was changed from All Atlantic to International. Of course, Cassidy defeated Jarrett and therefore has now retained the championship on Dynamite for 4 consecutive weeks and is the first official AEW International Champion. Now, we spoke about Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs rather, and he will defend the TNT Championship this coming Friday on the St. Patrick's Day special edition of AEW Rampage, which will air tomorrow, March 17. Powerhouse Hobbs laid out an open challenge for his TNT Championship for this week's Rampage, and AEW star Ray Phoenix has stepped up to the plate and accepted the challenge for this week's Dynamite. Phoenix was backstage with manager Alex Abrahantes, who hyped up Phoenix, telling him that he should win the TNT Championship after his success as a tag team and trio star. Phoenix had previously held the AEW World Tag Team Championship and World Trios Championship one time each, but has never held singles gold in the company. Powerhouse Hobbs, meanwhile, it's his first run as AEW TNT Champion, winning the title from Wardlow on the March 8th episode of Dynamite. The match against Phoenix will be his first defense since winning the title last week. Now, this week's Rampage will take place at the Canada Life Centre in Manitoba, Canada. Apart from the TNT Championship, 2 other matches have been confirmed for the show. Matt Menard and Angelo Parker of the Jericho Appreciation Society will take on the Bollywood Boys, while Taya Valkyrie, who made a surprise appearance on Dynamite, will make her in-ring debut against an unnamed star. Now, speaking of people joining AEW as well, AEW has a new producer and coach, a former WWE Performance Center coach as well. At last night's AEW Rampage taping, Tony Khan reportedly confirmed an earlier report about a former WWE name signing with AEW. After an earlier report from PW Insider noted that former WWE Performance Center coach Sarah Stock had signed on with AEW as a coach and a producer. She has previous experience working as a producer for the WWE main roster and a past stint as a Performance Center coach. Boasting an accomplished in-ring career in her own right, Stock performed in AAA, CMLL, and Impact Wrestling. She was a former 2-time Knockouts Tag Team Champion in Impact, alongside current WWE superstar Zelina Vega under the names at the time of Sarita and Rosita. So she is now signed with AEW as a coach and a producer. finally, some AEW stars reportedly are unhappy with the latest AEW advertising. Of course, AEW Dynamite made its debut last night in Winnipeg, but it wasn't the only Canada-related news that dropped yesterday. AEW made a major announcement regarding their next tour in Canada, which will take place over the summer, over June and July. The tour will consist of 6 events, including the second annual Forbidden Door pay-per-view in Toronto on June 25. AEW shared the announcement for the events on social media yesterday, and it created a stir among a few AEW stars. Current AEW World Tag Team Champion Austin Gunn reacted to the images, sharing his displeasure with he and Colton not being featured on the promotional material. He tweeted, quote, "Not on one of these posters, shocker again." This provided a response from Sean Spears, who also wasn't featured on the advertising despite being Canadian. He said, quote, "Imagine if you were Canadian." Now, Sean Spears has not appeared on AEW television since the company's last show in Canada on October 14, where he teamed with FTR to defeat Brian Cage and Gates of Agony. That appearance itself came after Spears was not featured on AEW television for 5 months. Certainly interesting that you have that, and then Darby Allin goes on Dynamite and talks about stars complaining about situations in the company on social media. But there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.